This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We're honored to continue. This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health. Dr. Joel Lawley. This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health. Dr. Joel Lawley.
Let me admit people.
Well, hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Daily with Doc and Becca. I am not Becca. I am Coach AJ filling in for our illustrious host, Becca Dukes, who is on a campaign learning more so she can help more and more of us. I hope everyone is in the Zoom room and out on YouTube and Twitter. I will get to you as soon as possible. But just to let you know, this program is for educational purposes only, and the content is not intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA, and testimonials shared are just the experiences of the individual who's sharing them. And results may vary, results do vary, and they may not be typical. We don't make claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you have options available. Welcome everyone to Daily with Doc and Becca, and today is special because it is called Pharmacist Fridays, with our main man, good friend, mentor, teacher, avid reader, learner, constantly building on his knowledge base. Guy we all love, Pharmacist Ben. Pharmacist Ben, how are you today?
AJ, good to see you, and thank you, everybody. And I want to give a special shout out to my new friend, Crystal. I hope she's on the call. She said she's going to be on the call with her ex, who's an RN, which I'm very excited about. You know, I love talking to medical professionals. Sometimes I feel like we're intimidated to present this message to people who understand medicine, and we shouldn't be, because this is a very powerful, coherent, and most importantly, unfalsifiable message. In science, we're always looking to falsify. We're always looking to see where there are mistakes in our theories or in our hypotheses. So we're always looking for weak links. There ain't no weak links here. And that's why I love talking to medical professionals, because they really get it, number one. And they're the best kind of representatives because they're skeptical and they're cynical. And everybody should be skeptical and cynical. I don't like preaching to the choir. I want questions. I want people who make me think and who want to really look for holes in the message so I can show them that there are none. And so I'm very excited about Crystal and her, hopefully her ex, who's an RN on the call, who's an RN is on the call as well.
All right. Well, you know, if you want to be challenged, Ben, you came to the right place.
Love it. This is unfalsifiable, and challenges are always welcome. And then also, I loved your title, AJ. Why don't you tell everybody about the title? Because I think it's really instructive about the message in general, and particularly how I speak about longevity and nutritional supplementation.
Yes, sir. And if you wouldn't mind turning your volume up just a tad.
I don't know how
The
I can do
title,
that.
well, don't you worry about it then. The title is Pharmacist Ben Disease, Address It the Way You Do Everything Else. And that stems from earlier today, Hattie, who's on the call. Hattie, raise your hand so you can ask your question. I asked Pharmacist Ben a question that Hattie posed to me about amyloidosis.
Love that question.
And Pharmacist Ben replied to me, you address it the way you address everything else. You address it the way you address everything else. You address it the way you address everything else. And finally, you address it the way you address. Oh, wait, it's not finally. Actually, he said it one more time. You address it the way you address everything else. He's like, AJ, are you not paying attention to me? Like, what's going on, pal? Haven't I said it enough to you?
Yeah, because I say
The
the same thing.
triangle of disease.
I say it all the time. So, let's just take amyloidosis first of all. Okay, can we get Hattie up?
Hattie, unmute yourself, Hattie.
I'm unmuted.
Hi, Hattie.
Hi, I have a protocol too. I want you to tell me if it was good or not.
Well, let me tell you about amyloidosis first.
Okay.
Okay, so amyloid is a fiber. It's kind of like a patch. And this is how the body works. The body sends patches to different parts that are weakened. And so amyloidosis is an accumulation of these patches, these fibrous patches. The fibrous patches interfere with biochemistry. When they interfere with biochemistry, you end up getting sick. The reason I thought this is important is because the most common understanding of amyloidosis occurs in one part of the body. What part of the body is that? Where you hear about amyloid, AJ or anybody else? Hattie, where do you hear about amyloid?
The heart.
No, that's not where we hear about it the most. It is
The brain.
heart.
The brain.
Yes, the
Oh, the
brain.
brain.
How,
Okay.
in terms of what?
Plaque buildup, right?
Exactly. We hear about it in terms of Alzheimer's disease. And if you ask the conventional wisdom, the medical professionals who are not biochemists, they're clinical chemists, they're not biochemists, they will tell you that Alzheimer's disease is caused by amyloid plaques. And this misunderstanding is so significant that now drug companies are looking to come up with vaccines against amyloid plaques. That's really the strategy. That's the medical strategy for dealing with dementia, Alzheimer's dementia. So amyloid plaques are patches. And the way you can tell that amyloid plaques are not the cause of Alzheimer's disease is because amyloid occurs everywhere in the body. It just doesn't occur in the brain. It's not a brain-specific protein. It occurs wherever there's deteriorating tissue. Now, one of the other places where amyloid plaques build up is, as Hattie said, is in the heart, right? And I kind of made fun of this. I like the nomenclature of medicine really is low-hanging fruit for teasing. So there's a particular. Do you remember that the health challenge ATTR amyloidosis that we talked about. Do you guys remember that?
Okay.
Okay, we talked about ATTR CM is what they call it. And when you have a diagnosis like ATTR CM or transerythropoietin amyloid cardiomyopathy, you go, what the heck is that? What am I going to do? Oh my God, I got transerythropoietin amyloid cardiomyopathy. Oh my God, it's horrible. Because the diagnosis, the nomenclature of diseases is a Latin description of what's happening, but to the uninitiated, it sounds like this mystery. And the way all institutions work is they love mystery. That's why they use big words. Our political institutions, our legal institutions, our medical institutions. They love jargon. They love big words because they disempower us. And the whole idea of longevity, the whole point of longevity is to empower us, to take our power back. And so diagnoses is this medical strategy, medical technique for describing a biochemical phenomena and simultaneously disempowering the people that have that. So to give you a simple example, you have muscle pain. You go to the doctor and you say, hey doc, I got muscle pain. And he looks at you and he rubs his chin and he says, oh, you have fibromyalgia. And you say, oh, well, really? What does that mean? He says, it means you have muscle pain. Fibromyalgia means muscle pain. They repeat back to you what the biochemical process is that's causing your problem. It doesn't help you. It's a description. Transerythropoietin amyloid cardiomyopathy is accumulation of misfolded proteins that get deposited in the myocardium, in the heart muscle. Myo means muscle, cardio means heart. So you get amyloid deposition in the heart. However, ATTR is not just in the heart. People who have ATTR have extra cardiac deposition of amyloid in extra cardiac tissues throughout the body. As it turns out, transerythropoietin is a normal protein that circulates in the blood. It's a carrier protein for vitamin A, for retinol, which is a form of vitamin A. It's made in the liver, and a little bit is made in the eyes, and it circulates around. And when the body needs a patch because there's deteriorating tissue, this transerythropoietin will get converted into amyloid. This is how brilliant the body is. It takes a raw material that is functional and it manipulates it and turns it into something that it needs. It's like a bank account. The transerythropoietin is not only a protein for helping deliver and transport retinol, it's also raw material for amyloid. And so when the body says, oh, there's some deteriorating tissue, we need to make a patch, what will happen is the transerythropoietin will get tweaked and you'll end up with amyloid. This is kind of like one of the ways the body works. It's very economical. It turns things into other things. So the bottom line is now you have an accumulation of fibers in various tissues. And so if you're a doctor, a drug company, you'll say, let's get rid of the fibers. Let's get rid of the patches. But if you use common sense, you say, why don't we figure out why the body needs to create patches? Why don't we figure out the deterioration of the tissue? So yes, there's amyloid in the brain when you have Alzheimer's disease, but the amyloid's not just there. The amyloid's a patch for deteriorating tissue. Why is the tissue deteriorating the brain? AJ, help me. Why would the tissue be deteriorating the brain? What was my text today? The same reason any tissue deteriorates: toxicity, starvation, and suffocation, period. Why does tissue deteriorate in the heart muscle? Starvation, suffocation, and toxification. Why do patches appear in deteriorating tissue in the spleen? Starvation, suffocation, and toxification. See where we're going here? It's all the same thing. Your diagnosis is irrelevant. All disease is the end result. all of it, of starvation, suffocation, and toxification. And the reason this is important is because there's nothing in the medical model's bag of tricks that can address suffocation and starvation and suffocation. And the second reason why it's important is because we can address suffocation and starvation and suffocation, starvation, and toxification ourselves. And that's so important, people. We have such low self-esteem when it comes to understanding our bodies. You know, low self-esteem is a really horrible scourge. It ruins people's lives, low self-esteem, thinking you can't do it. Not in all matters. In all matters, thinking you can't make money, thinking you can't get a relationship, thinking you can't survive. But its most insidious, guys, is when we have low self-esteem about about our bodies, about our physicality, about our physiology. And that's why we go to other people. I've always said this, and I'll say it again. The job of a good healthcare professional is to get themselves out of the picture. My job is to get myself out so you can do it yourself. And that's why I go to great lengths to explain how all these things happen. And what do most people say they like about how I say things? I make it simple. I make it easy to understand. Because when you break it down and you drill it down to its basics, it is simple. It's not simple and basic and easy to understand if it's in Latin. It's not simple and basic and easy to understand if it's got 20 syllables associated with it. That disempowers us. That makes us feel like we can't understand our bodies. That makes us understand like we can't do anything. That makes us understand that we have to do whatever we're told. One of the things that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up is when somebody says, my doctor told me, or my doctor put me on, or my doctor said I couldn't do this, or my doctor told me I had to do that. We infantilize ourselves. We make ourselves into infants, and we make our authorities into our daddies and mommies. And while you could say that's not necessarily the problem if they're helping us, they're not. We got more doctors and more drugs and more surgeries and more hospitals and more protocols and more know-how than any other culture in the history of mankind, and we're simultaneously the sickest and the most diabetes-ridden and the most obese. So it's not working, people, but we still participate in the medical strategies because we have low self-esteem. We don't believe in ourselves. We don't think we're capable of doing it. And we keep going back. What's the definition of insanity?
Keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. So the reason AJ put this, title this talk, you address it the same way you do everything else, is because that's what it is. You address ATTR, amyloidosis, cardiomyopathy, the way you do everything else. Amyloid gets deposited in the heart tissue when the heart tissue is breaking down. It's a patch, it's a Band-Aid. The body is not stupid. The medical model wants us to think the body is stupid, that it makes mistakes, that it screws up. No, it doesn't make mistakes. It's perfectly logical. When tissue's damaged, patches get put in place. It's quite brilliant. By the way, that's what cholesterol is too in the arteries. It's a patch, and calcium and cholesterol plaques and calcified plaques. Those are also patches. So if you have a patch that's interfering, because patches can interfere while they're functional structurally, they can interfere with metabolism and chemistry, obviously. Remember, the body is a pristine system. You know, when they're making computer chips, they have to wear a gown that covers them from head to toe. You know this? You ever see them making computer chips? AJ, I'm looking at you because I can't really address anybody else. You ever see how they make computer chips?
Absolutely.
In sterile rooms with the gowns, these head to toe gowns that they wear, completely covered. Why? Because if a little piece of dust gets in a computer chip, it destroys the computer chip. So they can't have any dust. They got special filters and sterile techniques. Well, if that's required to prevent the dysfunction of a computer chip, what do you think the body's about? The body is even, the specificities and the tolerances of the body are even narrower and more specific. So once stuff gets into the body, once patches get put into place, Once inflammation occurs, once swelling occurs, once white blood cells and secretions occur, which are there to protect, it interferes with chemistry. In the case of the heart has to pump electrical energy in this incredible process that allows it to beat, a billion times in a lifetime. If you start getting patches in there, that's a problem. So obviously ATTR, amyloidosis cardiomyopathy, is a problem, but the problem isn't the patch. If you have cockroaches in your house because you have garbage, the problem isn't the cockroaches, it's the garbage. And you can spray all the insecticides you want, but if you got the garbage, the cockroaches are coming back. And that's how kind of our medical strategies. We're getting rid of the cockroaches. You want to get rid of the garbage. And then you don't have to worry about the cockroaches. You guys see where we're going here. So I say you treat ATTR, amyloidosis cardiomyopathy, the way, or transerythrotin amyloidosis cardiomyopathy, the way you do anything else. You work on the gut because that's how toxins get into the body. You oxygenate the system through breathing techniques as well as anti-inflammatory techniques. And then you make sure that you're flooding the body with key nutrients. Hattie, that's for you. I'll tell you specifically how you do it. Okay? Go ahead. You say something, AJ? Does that make sense, everything I said?
To me, of course.
Okay.
To Hattie, of course.
Okay.
But hopefully Hattie's asking this question because she wants something to back her up when she talks to her client.
Yes.
Hattie,
Hattie,
you have a follow-up?
Where are you, Hattie? Hattie?
Here, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. So, okay,
Okay.
so let's work with this patient who has this condition, okay?
Yes.
First of all, how old is this patient?
68.
Okay. At the age of 68, it's impossible for somebody subsisting on the standard American diet and living the standard American lifestyle not to have general deterioration. Babies don't get transerythrotin amyloidosis cardiomyopathy. Children don't get transerythrotin amyloidosis cardiomyopathy. Teenagers don't get it. 20-year-olds don't get it. 30-year-olds don't get it. It's a degenerative condition. What does that mean? The body is gradually breaking down. Breaking down gradually. It's transerythrotin amyloidosis cardiomyopathy is just another version, another disguise of MBFA disease. What is that?
My body's falling apart disease.
My body is falling apart disease. It's just another version of MBFA. MBFA shows up in all kinds of ways. You see Hattie, what I'm trying to do, and everybody who's listening, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take medicine out of this realm of mystery, of Latin diagnosis, of which there's tens of thousands, and bring it down into something that we can all manage and understand. So first of all, she's 68. So chances are almost 100%, 99.99, that she's dealing with an intestinal problem. Did you ask her about this, Hattie? And by the way, everybody who's doing longevity, helping people with supplements doing longevity, should always ask about the intestine because that's the source of the toxicity. And I know we have some new listeners on here, so I'm just going to, I'm sorry to repeat myself. I always repeat myself because it's always the same thing, but I'm going to repeat myself again. What happens, the way we break down, the way MBFA disease is initiated and progresses is, for most people, toxicity enters into the blood. All chronic degenerative disease is related to the blood, which of course makes sense because the blood is what's delivering the oxygen and the nutrients and detoxifying and electrifying. So all disease has to be backtracked to the blood. All disease is cell disease, and all cell disease is related to dirty blood. This gal who has a transerythrotin amyloidosis cardiomyopathy has a heart cell problem. And the heart cells are deteriorating and becoming dysfunctional because they're not getting oxygenated by the blood and detoxified by the blood and nourished by the blood. Why does that happen? It happens once toxicity enters into the circulation. There's two ways toxicity enters into the circulation. This is the source of all disease, all of it. Toxicity in the circulation. Does that make sense, AJ? Everybody listening? Toxicity
Of course it makes
in the
sense.
circulation. That's it. That's it. Or not just toxicity, malnourishment and hypoxia, low oxygen. Okay, so once the blood gets disturbed, you're off to the disease races. Why is that? Well, first of all, how does the blood get disturbed? At the level of the intestine, you have on one side, what they call the lumen, which is the center of the intestine, the place where all the stuff is. I'll tell you what that stuff is here in a second, because that's important. All the stuff that's in the intestine, and on the other side, you have the blood. And the way the system is designed is you eat food, the food gets digested, it gets broken down into its little tiniest components, and then in the intestine, those little components go into the bloodstream one by one. They actually go in. Some of them diffuse in, but a lot of them go in one by one. And it has to happen in a very controlled way. However, over the course of time, the intestine becomes inflamed. Why does the intestine become inflamed? Poor food choices. And that includes especially fried fats, that Dr. Wallach's always talking about. Fried fats inflame the intestine, but there's more. There's lectins, which are defensive molecules that are in plants, wheat and grains and of all kinds, and beans and eggplant and all kinds of vegetables, and grains and seeds have these inflammatory defensive molecules that additionally inflames the intestine. So fried fats inflame the intestine. They call them lectins, defense molecules in vegetables and beans and such inflame the intestines. Then, once the intestine is inflamed, it literally becomes, oh, by the way, female hormone, estrogen, that's not metabolized correctly, not processed correctly, that's also inflammatory for the intestine. There's all kinds of things, all kinds of excitotoxins and chemicals in food, etc. For a lot of reasons, the intestine becomes inflamed. Once the intestine becomes inflamed, two things happen. Number one, leaks begin to develop. Literally, leaks, porosity. It's called, technically they call it intestinal permeability. Intestinal permeability syndrome. Syndrome is when you have a lot of things that happen as a result of one thing. Intestinal permeability syndrome, colloquially, leaky gut syndrome. Once that intestine becomes leaky or permeable, stuff gets into the blood, not in a controlled way, not in a way one by one, the B vitamins, electrolytes, EFAs, whatever, phytonutrients, the peptides, they don't get in one by one. Things flood in. And it's kind of like if you go into when you're going into a country, we'll say, or a bar, people sneak in around immigration, or they sneak in around the bouncer, and they get into the blood, they get into the party. And what is it that gets into the party? What is it that gets into the blood? First of all, food particles. Second of all, bacterial particles. Remember, the small intestine has bacteria in it. Oh yeah, I forgot another reason why the intestine becomes inflamed is because of excess bacteria in the small intestine. The bacteria are only supposed to be in the large intestine for the most part. You get an accumulation of bacteria in the small intestine, again, following the wrong kinds of foods, antibiotics in the water, all kinds of stuff conspire to change the bacterial population or to increase the bacteria in the small intestine. That's called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and that's another reason why the intestine becomes permeable. So food particles, gluten, for example, peptides get into the blood. Also, bacterial particles get into the blood. Also, secretions from the immune system and from bacteria get into the blood. Things like histamine and aldehydes get into the blood. And worst of all, the intestine is a cesspool. It's a sewage pool. If you ever, I don't want to be graphic here, but I will be because, I have to be. But basically, when you have a bowel movement, that's that stuff. The bowel movement has all the water taken out of it, but it's basically that same kind of material. That's all going into the blood. Can you imagine this blood? And again, the blood looks like a red fluid, but it's not a red fluid. The blood is a complex system with vitamins and hormones and minerals and gases and carbon dioxide and oxygen and glucose and clotting factors, and everything is kept just pristine and tightly balanced with the right temperature and the right fluidity and the right oxygen level and the right pH, and all the parameters and tolerances are kept so tight in the blood. And now you put intestinal garbage, you put bacteria, you put food particles, you put immune particles, you put histamines, you put all kinds of chemicals in the blood. You got a problem. Can you see there's a problem here? And then because the body's brilliant. What the body will do is it will thicken the blood. Now, I call it dirty blood because I think it sounds graphic and it gives us a picture of it, but it's really hypercoagulable blood. Blood that's hyper thick, clotting, and it tends to clot. It's slow, it's sluggish. Why? Because the body doesn't want you distributing all that stuff to all the tissues. So it slows things down. At that point, several things happen. For one thing, you don't get oxygen to the tissues. Why? Because the blood's delivering the oxygen. Now it's not moving right. You don't get nutrition to the tissues. You don't get detoxification and you don't get electrification because everything's slowing down. And just a quick digression, I've said this before, but I'd say it again, quick digression, the brain reads the lack of oxygen to the tissue. It reads the lack of nutrition to the tissue. It reads an accumulation of acids and toxins in the tissues. And you know what it does? It turns up the pressure because it thinks the blood's not moving right, which it's not. And then we have high blood pressure. And then we go to the doctor and we say, the doctor says, oh, you have essential hypertension. 95% of high blood pressure is called essential hypertension. What does that mean? That means it's just whatever. We don't know. It just happens. That's just part of you. Essential means it's part of you. There's no reason for it. Well, the reason is the blood's not moving. So the body's turning up the pressure. So now you've got tissue that's not oxygenated, tissue that's not nutriated, tissue that's accumulating toxicity. So of course you're going to have problems at the tissue level, at the cell level. The cells are starving. The cells are toxic. The cells are hypoxic. They're lack of oxygen. But there's a second thing that happens once you have this intestinal inflammation and small intestinal, SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Once you have intestinal issues, the second thing that happens, electrolytes and B vitamins and vitamin C and amino acids are all absorbed in the intestine. Fatty acids are all absorbed in the intestine. And now you have inflammation in the intestine, so you don't get absorption. So you have this 1-2 punch of toxicity getting into the blood and starvation, or essential starvation, malnourishment. So between this 1-2 punch of toxicity in the blood, low levels of oxygen and nutrition in the tissues and in the cells, and lack of electrification and malnourishment, what the heck do you think is going to happen? Of course, systems are going to break down. Of course, cells are going to die. Of course, tissues and organs are not going to function appropriately, but it gets worse. It gets worse. Why? Because when tissues break down and cells die, they spew out their contents. And the contents of cells are great inside the cells, but when they're outside the cells, they can cause damage because they're acidic and there are enzymes. And so the body has to protect itself against these dead cells. And so what does it do? It surrounds them with fibers and goo. And these fibers and goo are part of what's called, or form what's called, inflammation. And so now you have these inflammatory pockets everywhere. And this is all progressing. It starts at birth and it continues until we're 50 or 60. And this whole process of tissue deteriorating, of blood not making it to tissues and cells dying, low levels of oxygen, hypoxia that's called, low levels of nutrition and toxicity building up and a sluggishness and electrical energy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It builds up and it gradually happens. And because you have so many cells, you have 100 trillion cells in the body, we don't notice it at first. And it kind of keeps progressing and progressing until one day, when we're in our 40s or 50s, and we're sitting around, minding our own business, watching TV, sitting on the couch, all of a sudden we feel something. Something hurts. We get a tremor. We get dizzy. We get a heart palpitation. You go to the doctor and he says, you've got ATTR, transthyretin amyloidosis, cardiomyopathy. And we're going to have to give you a beta blocker drug to get more, to take the edge off of the heart or whatever, a vasodilator to get more oxygen, whatever they do. Not understanding, the doctor not understanding, the medical people not understanding, or the patient not understanding that this has been a degenerative condition that's been progressing. And it can happen in the heart, and you'll call it heart disease. It can happen in the bones, and you'll call it bone disease. You can happen in the brain, and you'll call it brain disease. It can happen anywhere, and you'll call it that disease, but it's really coming from the same root. We are obsessed with the fruit. The problem is at the root. It doesn't matter whether it's an orange or an apple or a pear or a peach. What matters is the soil and the roots. Once the fruit is rotten, you're not fixing the fruit. There's nothing you can do. And if you try to fix the rotten fruit with a drug or with a surgery, you're just going to make more problems. You've got to get to the soil, and you've got to get to the root, which is going to be in the blood and in the intestine. That's all disease. Yes, sir.
Pharmacist Ben, I need to stop you here.
Yes.
I need everybody who's watching on any channel and in this Zoom room to make to tell us if you understand what Pharmacist Ben just said. If you do not understand, no, I don't want to see a heart.
I know. I want to know not understand.
I want a type in the chat. Do you understand what Pharmacist Ben said? So we can have a critical mass of 100 people who can go out and start educating the people that all disease is cell disease, and all cell disease is preceded by dirty blood. And if you have further questions about that, you know what to do. Trace it back to the root.
Yes.
This is what Pharmacist Ben is talking about here.
Yes. Yes. So let's talk about some strategies. I want that's called the etiology, the progression, how it all develops. I want that to make sense. I'm assuming that makes sense because it's really not that complicated. We talk about it literally every time we're on. Twice a week, AJ, we talk about it, right? So I'm sure at this point most people get it. It's not really that complicated. So then what do you do? Okay, so that's a problem. Now let's come up with a solution. Well, if the start of the problem is stuff getting into the blood, well, we gotta cut the head off a snake. We gotta patch up the blood we gotta patch up the intestine to stop the stuff from getting into the blood. Now, I'll say quick aside here, if you inject things through your skin, you can also run into these problems. And you've all seen pictures of meth addicts and crack addicts and how they look, and people who inject things into their blood will get Parkinson's disease and autoimmune diseases and various health challenges because they're sticking things into the blood through the skin. But most people aren't doing that. Although the last few years, our genius medical professionals told people to do that. That's okay. We won't talk about that. So, and of course they end up with blood diseases, all those people, a lot of those people, but we won't go. Okay, so for most people, it's coming in through the intestine. So you patch up the intestine. So what's the major strategy? First of all, you look for foods that cause problems. That's the first thing. You got to find the problem foods. And the best way to do that is to fast for a day or two. If you can't fast, at least lower your calories, restrict your calories. And by the way, fasting is one of the most salubrious, health benefiting strategies, lifestyle strategies anybody could ever do for a lot of reasons. We could talk about that some other time. But anyway, you fast. A lot of times people don't want to fast. So if you don't want to fast, just eat very sparingly. The reason you want to do this is because when you have a problem with food, it tends to go under the radar. You don't notice it, especially if it's been going on for a lot of people. It's going on since they were babies, or even since they were born for some people. So you don't notice these things. But if you fast for a day and then you eat a problem food, you can notice it. It become more the symptoms will become more dramatic and profound. You'll see them more. So fasting is really a good idea. And you write everything down in a food diary. And you look for problem foods and you eliminate those foods. That will stop the stream of toxicity from getting into the blood. Now, you also want to work on the bacteria in the intestine. Remember, SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, is one of the causes of this inflammation that leads to leaky gut. So you got to address those. And Youngevity's got an awesome product called I-26, which I personally take every day. Even though I don't have an intestinal problem, I don't want to get one. And I-26 is specific for killing the excess bacteria for the SIBO patient. So everybody who's dealing with a long-term chronic degenerative disease, particularly if there's bloating or discomfort, will benefit from I-26. Then you start to repopulate the bacteria. And that's where your nightly essence comes in. Go ahead. I'm sorry, AJ.
How long before you inject a probiotic should you be taking I-26?
How long before you take a probiotic? You want to wait a few hours because the I-26 will kill the
Okay,
probiotic.
hang on a second. So if I don't need a few days, I don't need it.
No, you don't need a few days. You don't need a few days. Like hours, 4 or 5 hours, something like that.
So if I got big SIBO, I can start taking a probiotic the same day I'm taking my I-26.
You want to be careful if you're dealing with SIBO, and SIBO, you can tell you're dealing with SIBO if you eat certain foods. And I don't want to get too much into digression, but there's a class of sugars called FODMAPs, which you may have heard of. Fermentable means bacteria can work on them. That's what fermentable means. Oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. That's just a fancy way of saying fermentable sugars, fibery, starchy, mushy stuff. And a lot of foods that we think are good are high FODMAPs foods. So you got to be careful. If you eat a food, avocados, pears, peaches, eggplant, and you eat a food and you feel bloated or discomfort, chances are you're dealing with SIBO. If you are dealing with SIBO and you start to take probiotics, sometimes you can run into more symptoms because now you're putting more bacteria into the intestine, which already has a lot of bacteria. So you got to be a little bit careful there. And that's why sometimes people take probiotics and not feel so good. One of the reasons. Anyway. So it's a good idea to do your I-26 for a little bit before you start introducing bacteria. That's another strategy you can use. Then you can use nutrients that quiet the inflammation and patch up the leaky gut. Your ultimate EFAs are nature's anti-inflammatories. They're nature's aspirin. They quiet inflammation. Now, you'll hear some people say that omega-6s are pro-inflammatory, omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. It's not that simple. You can't have anti-inflammation without inflammation. They both go together. Inflammation triggers anti-inflammation, so you need both omega-6s and omega-3s. Also, Youngevity has a great supplement called the Daily Digest, which comes in little packets and has a bunch of different digestive supplements in packets that you take every day. There's also the Ultimate Enzymes, which are important for helping you break down food so large food particles don't enter into the intestine. It helps you absorb your nutrients. It also has anti-inflammatory properties. Well, I'm going to say a couple more things real quick. Then there are strategies for building the intestinal lining. Your Fucoid Z, your polysaccharides support the mucosa. Your collagen peptides support the bulk of the intestinal lining, as does your TMR shake. Right, Fucoid Z is amazing for a lot of reasons, as you know. Fucoid Z also helps clean the blood, helps thin the blood, and your collagen peptides. And also glucogel caps. In fact, the Healthy Bone and Joint Pack, even though we marketed for bone and joints, will help you reconstruct and rebuild your intestinal lining. So that's for addressing the leaky gut. But remember, once you have intestinal inflammation, you're also going to be dealing with malnourishment. So you want to put nutrients into the body in an easy to process form. Liquids. That's why I love the Beyond Tangerine so much. And for people who are new on the call, don't necessarily, you can if you want, but don't necessarily follow the directions. I know it sounds weird not to follow directions, but if you do too much Beyond Tangerine, A, you're not going to like the taste because it tastes really sweet. And although some people do like taste, you might not like the taste, let's say. And B, if your body's not used to this kind of intensity of nutrients, density of nutrients, you may end up pulling water. You may end up not absorbing your nutrients and then pulling water with those nutrients. They're water soluble. They react with water, and you'll end up with bloating or gas or diarrhea, and it's just uncomfortable. And it's not a good thing. So start off with small doses. Find a place where you like the taste. Personally, I like half a teaspoonful in a glass of water or in a 16-ounce bottle of water. That's my sweet spot. Everybody's got their own place where you like the taste. Find where you like the taste. But the key is the liquid nature. The liquid nature bypasses the digestive problems that everybody has. So you work on the intestine by eliminating the problem foods, using nutritional support for strengthening the intestine and killing the bacteria, and then making sure you're putting nutrients into the system because you're dealing with malnourishment. Now, one of our secret weapons at Youngevity is the fact that the way the body is set up, the more deficient we are in nutrients, the faster we absorb them. So a dry sponge sucks up more water than a wet sponge. And most people's nutritional status is dry sponge-like. So you put nutrients into the system, it sucks it up real fast, and people notice results quickly with liquid nutrition and with nutritional density. So that's the second, that's the intestinal component. Then there's things you want to do directly for the blood. One of the fastest ways to fluidize the blood is with oxygen. In fact, a lack of oxygen, and a lot of that comes from poor breathing techniques, but also from inflammation, will clot the blood, cause the blood to become sticky. Oxygen spreads everything out. The red blood cells spread out when there's more oxygen. So oxygen will fluidize the blood. Water and liquids will fluidize the blood. Digestive enzymes, ultimate enzymes taken on an empty stomach have a blood thinning effect. Glucogel caps will have a blood thinning effect. The nightly essence contains an enzyme called Natto kinase, which also has a blood fluidizing or blood thinning effect. And that's the next step that you want to do. And then the third element is the detoxification element. Now, we talked about food as a toxin, and foods do contain lots of toxins, especially our standard American diet foods. But one of the most egregious blood toxins is something that we don't consider to be a toxin, and we all love. We love our poison. What is that? What is that toxin that we're all over ingesting?
Sugar?
Yes, sugar. Sugar is, after you need a certain amount of sugar for sure. But after a certain amount, sugar functions as a blood toxin, and it will cause something called glycation of the blood and of the blood vessels for that matter. And by the way, once the pressure, we talked about how the pressure becomes high because the blood's sticky. Once the pressure in the blood becomes high, and once the blood becomes glycated and the vessels become glycated, you get breakdown of the vessel. The cells of the vessel, everything's cellular, and the vessels themselves, the arteries and the veins, particularly the arteries, are lined with cells. When the pressure is high and when the blood sugar is high, the inside cellular material, they're called endothelial cells, will break down and release gases that will further inflame the blood. So keeping sugar low is critical. Now, you may go to the doctor, you may have all these symptoms, and you may go to the doctor and he says your blood sugar is normal. Well, it may be normal, but the problem is blood sugar normality is maintained by insulin. And both blood sugar, or both sugar, I should say, and insulin are problems. Sugar is a problem because it's sticky and it causes this glycation reaction. Glycation is like toast. Bread is made of sugar. When you heat the bread, it glycates. It looks like toast. Brown meat looks like, that's glycation, brown meat. That's what happens to our bodies. It browns, we toast. And the blood toasts and the blood vessels toast and the collagen toasts, we toast to death. It's one of the ways we die. We toast ourselves to death, and that toasting is the end result of sugar. So keeping your sugar levels down is very important, and the body will do that with insulin. And so you may go to the doctor and he'll say your blood sugar is normal, but what he's not noticing is your blood sugar is normal because your insulin is high. Insulin controls blood sugar, shunts blood sugar into the cells. So the problem of insulin is also an issue because insulin revs things up. Insulin speeds things up, makes cells divide really fast, makes the cells burn through nutrients really fast. And so insulin itself is a health issue. But the doctor will say your blood sugar is normal and you think everything's fine, but what he doesn't realize is it's only fine because your insulin is so high. And not only is insulin itself a problem, but over time, your body will stop listening to insulin. That's called Insulin Resistance Syndrome. And Rebecca and Doc wrote a whole book on it. It's called metabolic syndrome, really, or insulin is synonymous with insulin resistance syndrome, and that affects everything in the body. So for all of these reasons, it's critical to keep your blood sugar down. Now, there's a lot of ways to do it. Obviously, the most important way is to eat the sugar, but that's a little bit difficult. So at least wean yourself off or eat less. And remember, bread is sugar, potatoes are sugar, burritos are sugar, beans are sugar, anything that's starchy and mushy is going to be sugar. And so keeping your intake of sugar and sugary foods and foods that break down into sugar low is very important. But there's other things you could do. Drinking liquids dilutes your blood sugar, dilutes your blood, and so it lowers the concentration of sugar by dilution. So drinking a lot of liquids, and nobody's drinking enough liquids unless they're really conscious about it. And when you're drinking liquids, you always want to do at least some Beyond Tangy Tangerine in some of those liquids because you're going to pee out your B vitamins, your vitamin C, and your electrolytes the more water you're drinking. So preferably, you want to put a little BTT in all of your liquids and all of your water, but you want to be doing half a gallon to a gallon a day. And all diabetics or people who have concerns about diabetes or blood sugar issues should be drinking water first thing in the morning, 32 ounces with a little BTT in it. Why? Because at night, you've been in bed for 6 to 8 hours. You haven't drank any water. So now your blood's concentrated. You sweated. Now your blood's concentrated. You've gone to the bathroom once or twice. Now your blood's concentrated. So your sugar levels, your blood sugar concentration is going to be much higher first thing in the morning. Drinking water will dilute that. Exercise and movement is also a natural way of lowering blood sugar. And then there are wonderful nutrients that you could use. And next to the digested nutrients, probably alongside the digested nutrients, the most important nutrients that we have are our blood sugar lowering nutrients. And of course, we have the healthy blood sugar pack. In addition to the healthy blood sugar pack, chromium, vanadium, selenium, these are all nutrients that will help you lower your blood sugar. In addition, your ultimate niacin will help lower your blood sugar. Niacin is part of something called the glucose tolerance factor, which helps the body handle glucose. So your ultimate niacin, in fact, all the B vitamins. And one of the reasons why there's a lot of reasons why I like the Beyond Tangy Tangerine so much, but one of the main reasons is because of the high concentration of the B complex. In addition to vitamin B3 or niacin, which is part of the GTF, the glucose tolerance factor, another really critical B vitamin for helping the body process sugar is thiamine, vitamin B1. And in my humble opinion, vitamin B1 deficiency is one of the most common and underappreciated and significant of all nutritional deficiencies. Why? Well, for a lot of reasons. First of all, the more sugar you eat, the more alcohol you drink, the more you're burning through thiamine. And as anybody who's been in the hospital or works in a hospital knows, that's one of the first things they put in your IV bag when you go in to the hospital is they put B vitamins, especially thiamine. Thiamine deficiency is associated with mental health problems. Thiamine deficiency is associated with psychoses, alcoholic psychoses in particular. They call it Werner-Korsakoff syndrome. If you have this condition, and you've all seen people who are like talking to invisible friends and leprechauns and pink elephants and such, that's a classic sign of Werner-Korsakoff or alcoholic psychosis. When they go to the drunk tank, they put thiamine right in the blood and it cures it right away because thiamine is that important for mental health, for brain health. But you got to wonder, how many of our kids are going off to school after a breakfast of Pop-Tarts and toast and orange juice and, maybe an egg if they're lucky, cereal, etc., burning through their thiamine? They're not supplementing, they're burning through their thiamine. They go to school and they have attention deficit disorder or they have emotional problems. These are all classic signs of thiamine deficiency. Another classic sign of thiamine deficiency is a health problem that is it's ubiquitous among elderly people. Seems to be anyway. I hear about it all the time. Not a coast to coast talk that I do or a presentation that I do goes by. That's at least one person asking about this condition. It's called peripheral neuropathy.
Mm.
How many times, do you hear about peripheral neuropathy? Every week.
Every day. Every day.
It's an epidemic. What is peripheral neuropathy? Peripheral means the periphery, the extensions, the fingers, toes, hands, feet, that kind of thing. Neuropathy, neuro means nerves, pathy means sick, pathology. Sick nerves in the periphery. That's the description. But what does it feel like? It feels like fire. It feels like burning from the inside out. You can't do anything about it. You can put your foot in hot, cold water. It's not going to help because it's burning from the inside out. You can't imagine the misery of peripheral neuropathy if you don't have it. Peripheral neuropathy is a classic sign of elevated blood sugar. It's one of the classic markers. So if you're dealing with peripheral neuropathy, vitamin B1 was actually discovered at the turn of the 20th century, the late 19th century, when they noticed that people who were deficient in thiamine got peripheral neuropathy. It's like that's the classic sign of thiamine deficiency and the classic sign of dysglycemia or elevated blood sugar. And by the way, I don't say diabetes, I say dysglycemia. And we always have to do these kinds of what they call them, these disclaimers at the beginning of the call. This call is not designed to blah, 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 take your place, your doctor, this and that and the other. You can't say diabetes. I can't tell you, I can, but because I'm a pharmacist, but you can't say, if you're a distributor, you can't say this will help you with your diabetes. Why? Because diabetes is a brand name. The medical model owns that. It's copyrighted, essentially. So you're not allowed to say that, but you can say dysglycemia, because the problem isn't diabetes anyway, it's dysglycemia, disturbances in blood sugar. So thiamine, vitamin B1 is critical for dysglycemia. Selenium, ultimate niacin, magnesium, the healthy blood sugar path. And by the way, because disturbances in blood sugar, dysglycemia are behind all health challenges, you're going to go a long way towards helping everything and preventing everything, even if you don't have it, by using the healthy blood sugar pack and all these blood sugar strategies, blood sugar stabilizing strategies, not to mention all the things we talked about with the intestine. Yeah, I'm sorry, DWD.
Ben, see, what's going to happen here is you're going to try and sneak on out of your chair
3
because
minutes.
you got another appointment to
Yes,
take
I got
care
3
of.
minutes. I got a phone call too, another call too. But
And we've got 10 questions. We got 10 questions.
I wanted to see, I'll take a couple questions here in a second, but I want everybody to see how simple this is. Now, simple doesn't mean easy, because people don't want to quit especially if you're in your 60s or 70s, you don't necessarily want to change your whole life. That's different. You don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. That's your business. And I always think of that Bugs Bunny cartoon where the little old lady, where Bugs Bunny's helping the little old lady across the street and she's hitting him with her umbrella because she doesn't want to be helped across the street, right? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? He's like,
Yeah, of course I do.
right? She doesn't want to be helped. So you only help people who want to be helped. But if you want to be helped, these are all very simple, basic strategies, non-doctor, non-drug, non-medical.
Pharmacist Ben, I want the questions that Phyllis has and that I have, for the most part, you've answered already.
Okay.
And if you didn't answer it today, you answered it, a billion times before. It's the same answer.
Yes.
And but it's like people like it when it's centered on them because they feel as though it's
I'm
a
good with that.
difference.
I'm good with that. Let's pick one out. Pick one out. We'll walk through it. Patty, did I help you?
She can't unmute herself. Ask her to unmute, team.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
By the way, just real quick, 2-second answer. Marilyn put in the chat that the I-26 will kill the probiotic. That's not accurate.
It's not going to kill the probiotic. No, it's not going to kill the probiotic.
What you meant to say is kill bacteria, bad bacteria.
Yes, it will kill the bad bacteria, not the good bacteria.
Okay, so Marilyn, I need you to make concise everything that Ben says so that Phyllis can take the notes that you made today and put it in the different platforms.
Give me a question real quick because I do have to go, AJ.
I'll fix it. Thank you.
And by the way, we do Pharmacist Ben Bright Bites on Monday nights, and me and AJ, and AJ there, and we'll just do questions this Monday.
Sure, we will.
We'll just start with questions from beginning to end.
Okay, sure we will. And then Linda's saying, and in her question, I see the answer.
Yeah.
I've been taking these for years, been healthy. November 2024, had colon polyps, benign. Last 2 months, kidney stone. When I researched kidney stone, it lists vitamin D, turmeric can cause them. I want to restart with the longevity supplements. I have 6 boxes in storage. I'm a retired RN. I value
beautiful. I'm going to take an extra minute to talk to the retired RN. I love RNs. Love RNs. I've worked in plenty of hospitals. RNs are the most amazing, saintly, beautiful human beings. They're angels on earth. When you die and go to heaven, you go to the front of the line if you're an RN. You get 200 bonus points if you're an RN. They're just angels. So I love RNs.
St. Peter gives you a high five if you're an RN.
You don't want to look at nutrients causing anything. That's not how it works. It's metabolic. Kidney stones are metabolic. That means they're biochemically based. Now, there's a major relationship between the colon and the kidneys. Why? Because kidney stones are caused by, guess what? What's the cause of everything, AJ? Dirty blood. Kidney stones, and all stones really, gallstones, tear duct stones, bladder stones, are a sign that the blood pH is off and that the solid material in the blood is starting to precipitate. It's starting to get solid. In order for all the material in the blood to stay in liquid so you don't see it, the parameters of the blood, the chemical parameters of the blood have to be perfect, particularly the acid level and the alkaline level, the pH of the blood. Once the blood becomes disturbed, once the blood chemistry is disturbed, substances will precipitate. You know what I mean when I say precipitate? It becomes solid.
Okay.
It's like if you have a glass of water and you put a teaspoon of salt in it, it goes in. A second teaspoon, it goes in. A third teaspoon, it goes in.
Saturate.
It saturates, exactly. So stones are supersaturation in combination with disturbances in blood chemistry. How is that related to the colon, AJ? Why would she have polyps in the colon? How would this be related, connected?
Fill us in, Ben.
Leaky gut.
Well, okay.
Inflammation in the colon. Once the colon is inflamed, one of the natural progressions is the formation of polyps, which are growths. Remember, there's cells in the colon too, and the cells are depending on a healthy environment. Once the environment in the intestine is changed, then you have cell growth that's disturbed, and that's where polyps are. Polyps are growths. So there's a relationship there, and to blame it on turmeric is absurd. And not to mention vitamin D, it's absurdity. You have a metabolic issue, and the reason this is important is because if you have a metabolic issue that's affecting the blood, it's heading towards heart disease. It's heading towards Alzheimer's disease. It's heading towards cancer. It's heading towards autoimmunity. If you think it's vitamin D and turmeric, you're going to miss a golden opportunity to add years to your life. You're going to miss a golden opportunity to reduce the likelihood or the risks of further degenerative conditions. See what I'm saying? So if you want to blame turmeric and vitamin D, you're going to miss all this wonderful opportunity to minimize or mitigate the risks of diseases down the road.
You're not paying attention to the red warning light.
It's the red warning light, exactly. So stones should always be regarded as disturbances in the blood, like everything else. And I just tell you the logic of it, but if you want to cut to the chase, all the things you got to do to clean the blood. All right, AJ, I got to motivate. I wish I could see this. I wish I could talk to the RN and just tell her how much I appreciate her. All RNs. Appreciate all RNs.
And we appreciate all Pharmacist Bens.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And I gotta motivate. AJ, you take over. We'll do a
9 o'clock on Monday, right?
9 o'clock on Monday. We'll do Bright Bites and we'll just answer questions.
You sure you don't have Australia on Monday?
I don't have Australia.
See you on Monday. Thank
All
you.
right.
Everybody give a hand clap for
Yay,
Pharmacist Ben
Albert.
Fuchs.
Yay.
Pharmacist Ben, thank you very much, sir.
All right.
All right. Thank you,
Bye,
Ben.
everybody.
All right, everybody, and this was another episode of Daily with Doc and Becca. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I know that everyone is now departing because our illustrious host is gone. And if we did not get to your question, which we likely did not, please email us at questions@dailywithdoc.com. And to reach us on Monday, thank you, Carrie. To reach us on Monday, Pharmacist Ben Bites, an easy way is to go to
AJ, we've got a message in the chat. Emergency.
all
Security
right.
issue.
We love those people. Can somebody kick them out? So at any rate, Albert, kick the person out, please. Find a name, kick them out. And at any rate, stuff happens. So we will see you all on Monday. The best way to reach us on Monday will be to go to zoom.dailywithdoc.com would be to go to youtube.dailywithdoc.com. That is the way you will be able to see us in on YouTube. And I think I got rid of most of it. Albert got the rest. All right. So we will be able to go to youtube.dailywithdoc.com and see us on YouTube. And now you know why, folks, you have to email us to get permission to join the Zoom, because we get people that come in and just want to be disturbances and really have nothing to add to our community here of longevity folks and folks who are interested in helping others help themselves. So on Monday night, 9 p.m., youtube.dailywithdoc.com is a good way to get there. If it's on Rumble, you can go to rumble.dailywithdoc.com and catch us on Rumble. And those are two ways you can watch us. On x.dailywithdoc.com, you can catch us on X, and these will be pleased to have you on with us on Monday. And thank you to Becca Dukes, who's not here with us today, for creating this platform, and Ruth Ellen Sanchez for making sure that even though you don't see her on the screen, she's going to email me or call me and say, AJ, you did this wrong. Fix it. Or AJ, it's fantastic. And she's always very gracious and thankful for all the stuff that the team does. And we are all gracious and thankful for, or at least thankful for, all of you who tune in and spend your time. Today we have Phyllis Anderson, who's taken her time to join us and was wanted to bring in some questions, but you know, our guy Ben is not short-winded. And then we have Mary, who is also joining us and took her time out to let people in and help us out there. And we have Fingers, who's paying attention to the chat and putting things in the chat that's useful for us, summarizing what Ben has said so that we're able to share these notes with our friends and family. And we have Albert, who is neglecting his family that came to visit just to be with us, to help us secure our chat. And we appreciate our team for being here, and we appreciate our team who's not here. We appreciate all Longevity Nation. Thank you all for showing up today, and we will see you on the flip side next week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday on Daily with Doc. And on Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, we will have another episode of Ben's Bites. Thank you for joining us. Have a good one. Have a great weekend.
This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Lawley. This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences, and the individual results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you